Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Ruth Heronshire, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County. On behalf of the League, I welcome you to our Hot Topics presentation on voting access and voter empowerment. Today's program is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. Any use of the recording other than showing in its entirety must get written permission from the League. At the end of the presentations by our speakers, we will be taking questions. Please put your questions into chat for Lucia Calloway. She is our chair of the Returning Citizens Committee. And put your questions in chat, and we will take questions from the chat after our presenters have completed their remarks. We are proud to welcome two distinguished leaders who are addressing issues directly related to voting access and voter empowerment. Taylor Crowe is the Florida State Director for VoteRiders. Taylor is a seasoned nonprofit strategist with nearly a decade of experience strengthening civic engagement and policy infrastructure across Florida. At VoteRiders, they lead statewide voter ID education, assistance, and coalition building.
No, I can't get the sound
on. Their work sits at the intersection of policy, direct service, and grassroots organizing, ensuring that voters most affected by restrictive ID laws have the support they need to participate fully in elections. Our other distinguished speaker is Marquis McKenzie. He serves as the statewide chapter and leadership coordinator for Florida FRRC, and he is the founder and president of FRRC, and this is a community outreach enterprise. Marcus brings lived experience, passion, and deep community engagement to his work. After his release from prison in 2008, he dedicated himself to uplifting at-risk youth, advocating for juvenile justice reform, and helping returning citizens rebuild their lives. As a leader with FRRC, he played a key role in the historic effort to restore voting rights to people with felony convictions in Florida. His story and advocacy continue to inspire change across the state. Taylor will be our first speaker, and so Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Good morning. Just 1 second. Just give me a thumbs up and make sure everybody can see my slides. They're presenting.
Yes, you have a thumbs up. We can see your slides.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for having me today. I am actually super excited to share this presentation with you all. VoteRiders has just gone through a national rebranding. So you are the first individuals from Florida to see this new slide deck. So just to introduce myself again, my name is Taylor Ashley. I am the Florida State Director for VoteRiders. I'm so glad that you're here today. And today we're going to be talking about something that affects millions of eligible voters right here in Florida. And of course, that's our voter ID laws. So we're going to talk about what they are, how they work, what's changing, and what that means for real people to make their voices heard. So Florida's voter ID landscape is one of the most active in the country right now. There are new bills moving through the legislative session, new ID number changes that are causing confusion, and federal legislation that could impact rules for every voter in America. It can feel like a lot to keep up with, and that's exactly why we're here today. By the end of this session, you're going to walk away with knowing exactly what Florida voters need to vote, what's changing, why it matters, and how VoteRiders can support you and the communities that you serve. So let's get into it. This is a few of the sections that we are going to cover today. But let me get started by telling you a little bit about VoteRiders. So we are a national nonpartisan nonprofit, and our mission is simple. We work to make sure that ID requirements don't stop eligible voters from casting a ballot that counts. And that's it. That's our whole focus. So we've been around on the ground for 13 years, and we do two things. First, we educate voters across the country about what IDs they need to vote, because the rules are different in every state, they change, and they're confusing. Second, if a voter needs an ID and doesn't have one, we help them get it. We cover the cost, we provide transportation, the document fees, and everything is free of charge every time. So VoteRiders is not a get out to vote organization. We're not a voter registration organization. We really come in and fill the gaps after all of that to make sure that someone, when they're registered, that they can actually walk in and vote and have the proper IDs.
Oh, it's just not on. The sound system's not on.
We can hear you. Make sure everybody's muted. So what does this actually look like in practice? So our work happens on a few different levels. So at the community level, we make sure that voters know what the ID rules are, because in a lot of places, people either don't know that the rules have changed or they've heard something confusing, and they've just decided that they're not going to. We also work closely with partner organizations, groups like yours, to make sure that you have the tools and the resources to talk to your communities about voter ID. You know your people, and we just want to make sure that you have accurate, up-to-date information to share. So on the policy side, we advocate for laws that make voting more accessible, and we push back on legislation that creates unnecessary barriers. And then at the individual level, we work one-on-one to help voters who need help getting an accepted ID to vote. So we're really working at every level, from the policy all the way down to the one-on-one interactions with voters. So here in Florida, VoteRiders runs two core programs. First is our outreach and education program. We work year-round to make sure voters and partner organizations understand Florida's voter ID requirements. And we stay on top of new documentary proof of citizenship proposals that are making their way through our legislature. The rules are complicated, they're fast changing, so we translate all of that into clear, practical guidance that people can actually use. And then our second is our voter ID assistance program. This is our direct work, our one-on-one help for eligible voters who need help getting their IDs. We navigate the system, schedule appointments, of course, cover the costs, and provide transportation. So these are our two programs that work together in the state. So VoteRiders, I've mentioned this, offers everything that we offer is completely free and available to any eligible voter who needs help anywhere in the country. Our website has just been redesigned and is a great resource. It also hosts our hotline, and it's open to everyone year round. But for 2026, the organization is making strategic investments in 7 states on the ground, Florida, of course, being one of them. Also including Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And these are states where the ID laws are strict, where new legislation is moving fast, and where the margin between voters being heard and being turned away can be razor thin. Having staff in these ground states means that we can actually build relationships, respond quickly, and make sure communities have what they need to go vote on Election Day. So in the state of Florida, you have myself, the Florida State Director, and then you have Kristen Rodriguez. She is our Florida organizer and really our expert on anything voter ID assistance related. In our next section, we're going to get into some research that we did with the University of Maryland. So the voter ID landscape has changed dramatically between 2020 and 2024. We've seen unprecedented explosion of voter ID laws. Millions of voters could be directly disenfranchised because they lack ID. These harmful inequalities on marginalized communities who are already underrepresented in our electorate. Complicated and changing ID requirements will soon worsen voter confusion. So I want to take a moment to talk about the scale of what we're actually dealing with, because sometimes the numbers are hard to wrap your head around. 34, we found in our research that 34.5 million people in this country are affected by restrictive voter ID laws. So it's not a niche problem. That's a massive portion of our electorate. About 20% of Americans don't have a driver's license. And when we dig into why, it's not because they don't want one, it's because of the cost, bureaucracy, and barriers that make the process incredibly difficult to navigate. And then there's citizens of color are 4 times more likely than white citizens to not have a current government issue ID. So these laws don't land equally. They magnify inequalities that already exist. And this is why our education and direct assistance are essential. So this map tells a really important story. Voter ID laws are not new, but what we've seen over the last 5 years is a significant acceleration. Since 2020, 21 states have added new or stricter ID laws. And that's not a slow trend, that's absolutely a wave. And what it means on the ground is just consistent change. The rules that applied the last election may not be the rules for today's election. Voters who have voted for years without a problem can suddenly find themselves confused or turned away at the polls because of some of this legislation. So this is exactly why voters or VoteRiders works year-round and not just the weeks before the election. So let's talk about what's happening right now at the federal level. So one of the bills that we have is the Save America Act. This was passed in the House this February of this year. And this bill would require every American to show documentary proof of citizenship, like a birth certificate or a passport, just to register to vote. It also adds a national photo ID requirement on top of that. So we're talking about 2 separate document hurdles before you can ever cast a ballot. Then there's the MEGA Act, the Make Elections Great Again Act. This one goes even further. It would ban universal vote by mail. It would require voter rolls to be purged every single month, bar any mail ballot received after Election Day, and expose election officials to lawsuits and criminal penalties just for doing their job. This bill hasn't passed the House yet, but it is moving. Both of these bills are currently stalled in the Senate because of the filibuster. Republicans would need 60 votes to move forward, and they don't have them. But here's why we're still keeping a close watch. There is active conversation about eliminating the filibuster to force these bills through. So stalled doesn't mean dead, and it's definitely a moment to pay attention to. All right, so digging into Florida specifically, I always love a little Florida history to let you know where we've come and where we are today. So before 1977, there wasn't even a statewide standard for IDs and voting. And each of the 67 different counties set their own ID requirements. In 1977, that's when our legislators stepped in and required all voters to present ID. And then in 1998, that was tightened to require specific photo IDs. In 2016, the law allowed us to update voters without an ID to cast a provisional ballot, and then created a list of acceptable photo IDs, which was expanded to 12. Moving forward in 2021, SB 90 changed the rules for vote by mail, requiring voters to provide a driver's license number, state ID number, or the last 4 of their Social Security when requesting a ballot. So let's talk about Florida law actually requires right now. In Florida, you need to show an unexpired photo ID with a signature to vote a regular ballot. So this includes the ones that people most think about: a US passport, your Florida driver's license, or Florida state ID. But it also includes things like student IDs, employee IDs issued by the government, veterans health IDs, a Florida concealed weapons license, or even a debit card, as long as it has your photo and signature on it. One more thing to highlight is that if you bring a photo ID and it doesn't have a signature on it, you just need to pair it with a second ID that does have your signature. We see a lot of college students with their student IDs needing to
You got the
your
voice?
student ID and then an ID with a signature on it. So now if someone shows up to the polls and they don't have an accepted form of a photo ID, in Florida, they're not turned away. They can still vote provisionally. So think of this as a placeholder. Their vote is set aside while their eligibility is verified. But there is a crucial part in this. Casting a provisional ballot is not a finish line to get that ballot counted. To make sure that the ballot actually gets counted, a voter has until 5 p.m. on the second day after the election, to provide a copy of an accepted photo ID to their supervisor of elections office. If they miss that deadline, then the ballot does not count. And the ID that they still need to provide is one of the 12 listed. So vote by mail is another area. It's our most recent ID change, and that is when you request a vote by mail ballot. Of course, we know that we have to do that once every 2 years after an election. You need to submit it in either writing, via online, or over the phone. And you have to submit a Florida State ID, driver's license number, or the last four of your Social Security. So now let's get into what is actually being proposed in Florida right now. Of course, we are in the end of legislative session. There is a dark light at the end of the tunnel, but March 13th is the last day of session. There are two documentary proof of citizenship bills that have been moving through our legislature, and that's going to be HB 991 and SB 1334. They are similar, but they have some differences. HB 991 has already passed the House. It passed along party lines. And under this new bill, applicants would need to verify their citizenship through existing DHS-MV records, so our DMV records, or by submitting the approved documents to the supervisor of elections. It would also add passport cards to the accepted list, but then it aims to remove student IDs, retirement center IDs, neighborhood association IDs, and public assistance IDs. And of course, that's a significant reduction in options. So this bill, HB 991, would go into effect July of this year. SB 1334 goes even further. This would apply a citizenship verification. Actually, they both, not just to new applicants, but to all 13.5 million registered Florida voters. So they would check our voter rolls up against the DMV records. And the last thing to kind of mention about these is that each one of them would add a citizenship marker to our IDs, and this would start by July of 2027. Also so the Senate bill is listed to go in effect by July 1st, 2026. The House bill is January 1st, 2027. And the House bill has been added to the Rules Committee in the Senate. So we're definitely keeping an eye on this. We've gone up and given public testimony, provided one-pagers to our representatives to try and stop this bill. I know I'm running close on time, so I'm going to speed through some of these things. So our ID number changes starting in July of 2024. Florida began issuing new ID numbers on driver's license and state IDs. So this affects anyone who has renewed or replaced their license since July 2024. The four numbers are randomized, and they were added as a security upgrade by a means of legislation that was passed. But why this matters for voting is that it has created, so the issue is that Florida elections offices still have voters' old numbers on file. So if your voter uses a new ID number to request the vote by mail ballot or sign a petition, it may not match the election records. So it causes a mismatch. But it's an easy thing to fix. First, if you're already at the DMV, just when they ask you if you want to update your voter registration information, say yes. That sends and pings the right systems so that your ID number is updated with the elections office. You can always call your supervisor of elections and get them to update your ID on the spot. Third, you can go and just register to update or request a voter information card online. And then fourth, you can always fill out just a paper form and select that you want to update or change your record. So how VoteRiders is helping, of course, we have our voter ID assistant program. The truth is simply getting an ID is not simple. It costs money. It takes time. The process can feel overwhelming for a lot of people. And then you need documents to get documents. You might need your birth certificate to get a state ID, but getting that birth certificate, you might need a state ID. So at VoteRiders, we're really here to help people work through the hurdles that they may experience when they're trying to get their IDs. One of the ways that we help voters is through our ID helpline. We want to make sure that everyone in this session knows how to access it and how to share it with people in their communities. So our helpline is bilingual and it's staffed by VoteRiders volunteers or staff who will have real one-on-one conversations with voters. It's not a pre-recorded message. It's not an automated system. So we understand that every person that comes to us has an individual story and they need individual assistance. So folks can reach out. They can call or text us. They can visit voteriders.org, they can email us, or they can even go to our Facebook and start a message, and that's going to connect them to our helpline and chatbot. Another resource that we have is our voter ID information cards. These cards are free, printed, and mailed to you, and they break down what voters need to know about IDs, and for this upcoming election. These are great if you're canvassing, hosting community events, or running a workshop that you can have physical material to hand to people that you're sharing with and speaking to. This is our design from last year, and by the end of March, we're going to have our new 2026 cards in both English and Spanish. Another great resource and tool that we have is just our voteriders.org/Florida website. It has just been relaunched, rebranded, and it has all of the information for Florida voters, and then specific information for different communities as well. Online, you can also find a bunch of digital assets. These are ready-to-use graphics that you can share and post on social media with an easy lift. And my last section is just how you can directly get involved in VoteRiders Florida and the work that we're doing. So one is hosting a letter writing party. It's one of my favorite ways to take action because honestly, it's a lot of fun. By hosting a letter writing party, it's exactly what it sounds like. You gather some friends, neighbors, members of your organizations, and together you write letters to voters in Florida who may be confused or uncertain about ID requirements. We try and make it easy for you all. VoteRiders provides pre-written voter-tested letters, voter addresses, return address labels, and envelopes for your party. Before we'll sit down and have a one-on-one, make sure that we walk through all of the Florida ID rules, explain why this outreach matters, and just really make sure that you're confident to answer any questions that your guests have. And that's an example of what our letter from a couple years ago looked like. Partner referrals. This is a really important one for anyone who's already out in the community doing voter outreach. When you're canvassing or tabling, at an event, you are going to meet people who need more information. You're going to meet people who don't have an ID and they need to be connected with our services. And in that moment, we want you to be able to take the next step with them. So that's what we have our partner referral materials for. We're rolling out new materials specifically for this year. And this is just meant to be the bridge from your conversations into our assistance pipeline. And one of the final ways that we work with organizations is by hosting voter ID clinics. These are individual or a series of events that we promote, and we actually do on-site assistance. We have voters meet us and do the work right then and there instead of reaching out to them at a later time. We have our national volunteer opportunities. So if you're interested in working that helpline, being a voter ID assistance volunteer, if logistics are more your thing, we have write and appointment manager opportunities or group letter writing or text banks as well. And then my final slide, if you want to go any deeper with the work that we're doing and actually be a voter ID assistance volunteer here in Florida, learn how to order birth certificates, how to get someone their Florida ID. There's two different pipelines. They both end up in the same place. Is our national training. It's hosted once a month on Mondays. And you can find that on our national website, VoteRiders.org. We also have a Florida specific training. It's like a fast track jumping into the work. And we do that once a quarter. And our next one is going to be on April 14th. So I want to close by saying thank you for this opportunity. The work of protecting voters doesn't happen just in courtrooms or in legislative chambers alone. It happens in community rooms, at kitchen tables, at canvassing events, and in one-on-one conversations with voters who just need help figuring it all out. So that's the work that VoteRiders does every single day. And we are excited to partner and support with anything that you all have going on this year. Thank y'all so much.
Taylor, thank you very, very much for this very enlightening and timely and necessary presentation. I would remind everyone that if you have questions for Taylor or for Marcus, please put them in chat.
Excuse me, the chat is disabled.
Well, I'll double check, but chat should be working and direct things to Lucia Calloway, but I'll double check that in a moment. Let me go ahead and introduce Marcus. Marcus, you will need to unmute and
Can you hear me?
yes, and we can see you. And if you have a presentation, the share should be working. So Marcus, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to look to see what might be going on in chat.
No problem.
I was going to, excuse me, Ruth, I've been watching the chat and I just put something in the chat, it went through. So I'm not sure how it's disabled.
Thank you for letting me know that. I do have it restricted to only go to the co-hosts, and someone else has put in the chat theirs is not disabled.
Mine's not going through.
Well, Shara, I'm not.
If there's two options on the chat, there's one that's everyone, and then to the right it says new chat. It'll give you an option to message one of the three hosts. I think that's a way that you can submit the questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor, and I'm glad it resolved the issue for Phyllis. Marcus, go. I'm turning it over to you as our speaker. Thank you.
No problem. One, I would like to say I really appreciate you guys, everything that the league is doing, and thank you for having us a part of the hot topic today. And then second, definitely want to give my kudos and shout out to VoteRiders. Taylor, great presentation. Love the work that VoteRiders is doing across the state, not only in the state of Florida, but also across the nation. Keep up the great work. So hey, I'm Marquis. I work with Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. I also like to start off by sharing a little bit of my story and how I got involved with the organization. At the age of 15, I decided to make one of the just craziest decisions in my life. What got me took out of the juvenile system and charged as an adult and sent to prison for my very first offense. In the state of Florida at that time, Orange County particularly led the most juveniles being charged as an adult across the state. Unfortunately, I was one of those juveniles. Nevertheless, my testimony got me a part of something bigger than my life that I could even explain. Growing up in a household, we didn't have conversations about voting and how important voting was. I would see my parents go vote, but that was just it, right? So voting wasn't a household topic for me. And when I lost my voting rights, same thing. It was something I wasn't gonna vote anyways. I didn't care too much about voting. It wasn't until I met Desmond Meade in 2014. I was at a rights restoration event, and he was talking about Amendment 4, the initiative that we restore voting rights to formerly incarcerated or people in Florida who have felony convictions. And at the time, I still didn't know too much about voting, and I was like, yeah. I care about voting, but I want my gun rights, right? And it's something you will probably hear a lot of people who've been impacted by the system. They talk about their gun rights and not necessarily voting rights. Well, in Florida for 150 years prior to Amendment 4 passing, if you had a felony conviction, you lost all of your rights for life. And so, of course, voting rights would never be the topic that you would see returning citizens care about. It wasn't until then Desmond Meade explained to me the importance of voting and that as a returning citizen, if I didn't have my rights to vote, I really didn't have a voice. And then it was when I started to realize how important voting was. And then I asked myself, if voting is not so important, why did they take our voting rights for life? If voting is so important, if it wasn't important, why did it make it so hard for other people to get their rights back? And so ever since then, I was sold. And I was even sold when I had the opportunity to be on go out and collect petitions. And what I found across the state of Florida when I knocked on doors, I didn't come across no one, different color race, different color backgrounds. I didn't come across no one who say, no, I'm not going to sign that petition. I don't think that, people who have felony convictions be voting. What I found was when I knocked on the door, someone would say, hey, my son is out there incarcerated. Hey, my wife has a felony conviction. Hey, my husband has a felony conviction, or my grandson is in the system. Yes, I would sign that petition. I knew then that across the state of Florida that we had a huge opportunity of passing Amendment 4. And so here we are now. We got Amendment 4 passed, and I always like to say huge shout out to the voters who could vote at the time, because many people like myself across the state of Florida, we wasn't eligible to vote. And so it wasn't for you guys going out and believing and saying yes on Amendment 4. I'm able to vote, and many other people across the state. So Amendment 4 passed. What did we see? We seen legislators come back and say that, hey, if you have your voting rights back restored based off of felony conviction, you have to pay off your felony fines and fees. That was a little disheartening, because what we found was 3% of individuals across the state, the clerk of courts wasn't even paying those fines and fees. What that showed us was that individuals who were impacted by the criminal justice system, it wasn't a priority to go to the clerk of courts and say, hey, here's my money, I want to pay off my fines and fees. Or individuals who were impacted by a felony conviction just didn't have the money because they couldn't get jobs. And so what we did was we fundraised with the help of many supporters across the state and the nations. We was able to fundraise and pay off about 44,000 and counting individuals across the state felony fines and fees, so they can have the be eligible to vote. What we seen when that happened, of course, when our current government administration, whatever his taxes were, I call this confusion. We started to see individuals get arrested across the state of Florida. And those individuals who was getting arrested was individuals who either had felony murder or felony offense charge. What that did was, one, it was unlawful because the state of Florida did not warn anyone of those particular charges if they was eligible to vote or not. And then two, what it did was it confused a lot of returning citizens across the state of Florida who was eligible to vote. They just didn't want to vote anymore. And because they would say, hey, we seen stuff on the news that I had a felony conviction. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to risk my freedom. What did we do in response of that? We started a legal defense fund and a bail fund for individuals across the state of Florida who was getting prosecuted because of voting, just because the state wouldn't tell them their eligibility. Outside of that, we also filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida, holding the state of Florida accountable, not just the state, but also every supervisor of elections and also the clerk of courts, because we wanted the state to have a place in a process where individuals who wanted to vote but just didn't know that they couldn't vote or how much they can owe, that the state of Florida could tell them. And so now what we're doing as an organization, we're going through the advisory opinion process. What that advisory opinion process is shifts the accountability back on the state. With this application, the state has 90 days to respond to the returning citizen and say, hey, Marquis, you can vote. Hey, Marquis, you can't vote. And you can't vote because you owe this money in Orange County, Duval, Miami-Dade, you owe fines and fees, you can't vote. Or the state can also say, hey, Marquis, we can't find exactly what you owe. And so for that case, then you're dating to be able to vote and go register to vote because the state themselves couldn't even tell you how much you owed. And so this advisory opinion process is giving us an opportunity to at least shift the accountability on the state, and then a returning citizen don't have the fear or the jeopardy of being arrested or prosecuted for just trying to figure out their voting rights. Also, what we're doing, we're no longer paying anyone fines and fees. Based off how Amendment 4 wrote is written, it's giving us some loophole where we can go in and actually pay, modify someone's sentence. And so instead of us taking money to the clerk of courts or the returning citizens having the burden of trying to pay off their fines and fees, we can submit a motion to the clerk of courts and they can actually modify that fines and fees to community service hours, which I'm very grateful because of that process. Because what we seen was, and I'll just speak for myself, what I seen was doing this work when we became paying off someone fines and fees, it made us a direct service organization. And when you're a direct service organization to a point, it don't give you that much opportunity to actually build grassroots relationships with these individuals who we want to help. And so now when we convert the fines and fees over to community service hours, it's less transaction, and now we have an opportunity to be transformational with these individuals, engage them, empower them around civic engagements, and letting them know why it's important to be a part of democracy and why the day voice matters. And so, on behalf of the organization, I appreciate everyone that goes out into the community, has conversations with these individuals. And I'm pretty sure when you guys are knocking on doors or canvassing in the community, you come across quite a few people who are just uncertain about how they should vote, or do they have the eligibility to vote, and how do they go about that process. And I feel good as an organization to be there to say, hey, we can walk you through this journey, and not have to do it themselves. But not only that, an organization of individuals who've been impacted by the system, it builds a little more rapport with those individuals, because what we're seeing when it come down to voting, people they don't want to be involved because of the politics. But then when people have fear of being prosecuted, if they don't have no one safe to be able to help them navigate that process, they just stay away from voting alone. And I don't think we're in the times where nobody who's eligible to vote should be sitting out. And so I look forward to being able to engage with you guys on any type of way, doing more training, even going out and doing some canvassing work with you guys to help bridge that gap when it come down to having conversations with returning citizens. So I didn't have a too much long presentation because I do want to leave some space where you guys can ask us questions. And yeah, I look forward to being able to dive into those questions with you guys.
Thank you very, very much. A very dynamic presentation. I think that will be very effective and helpful. I saw a couple of people sending clapping signs. So very pleased with this information. I had reminded people, we asked you to put your questions into chat. Lucia, if you would go ahead and, you have unmuted yourself. Can you go ahead? Do you have any questions to ask of either of our speakers?
Yes, we'll start off with with Ashley's presentation. The first question let me see. This is from Joyce Lacombe. Says she wanted to connect with Taylor. She's part of of the league in Broward County and co-chair of the LGBTQ committee, and we are wanted to table with them potentially during a Pride event in June in Wilton Manors. In addition, potentially ask Taylor to be part of the panel they're having in July. So I think that's something Taylor will probably need to connect with Joyce.
Yeah, my email is just taylor@voteriders.org. And I almost think I got an email within the last 24 hours about that.
Okay.
Yes, please send me an email. Anything tabling, training wise. I'm happy to present or whatever's needed.
Thank you. And Joyce, yes, you'll be getting the link. It will have again, the email addresses for both Taylor and Marquis, and to make sure that you have the chance to get in touch directly. But Taylor did give you her pretty simple email just verbally. So hopefully the two of you will be able to connect very quickly. Lucia, another question?
Next question is, does VoteRiders still offer rides to voting sites?
So VoteRiders offers rides to polling locations, but only for individuals that we have helped get an ID. We want to make sure that we're kind of rounding out our service. And if we get somebody an ID and they don't drive, that we're providing them that ride. But it is specific to just the individuals that we've helped.
Thank you. Another question?
Next question, how do you order info cards for VoteRiders? This, and also a question for Marquis. Let's answer this question first, and I'll come to Marquis.
Yeah, so our voter ID cards, you can order them online. I was trying to, and I'll send information. I'll send the link after this to our hosts. The one thing I will say is hold off on ordering them until the end of March, just because that's going to be the 2026 version. But you can find the info cards online at voteriders.org.
Okay. And I will let everyone know, well, you'll be getting a follow-up email. Everyone who's registered will get a follow-up email. When the new cards are available, we'll send another follow-up email to give you that information to try and make sure you can get in touch with VoteRiders with the up-to-date information. And then there was a question, I think, for Marquis.
Yes. Marquis, do you have a presence at large protests, like, King's Day is coming up?
If requested, we will come out to any event across the state, and so yeah, we do have the capacity to come out and support those events.
I will also add that at least the League of Women Voters of Manatee County, when we table an event, have information for FRRC at our table and pass that out, or anyone who contacts us at info at Manatee, lwvmanatee.org, will send that information as well. And in our follow-ups, we will try and make sure that you have the ability to, anyone who's on this call or was registered, will make sure that you have the opportunity to get in touch with FRRC. And Marquis, could you say what FRRC stands for?
Yep, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
And I should have known that, but my brain's short-circuited. So when I introduced you, I didn't say.
On Twitter.
Any more questions?
Yes,
Lucy?
yes, one more. This is the same thing from Phyllis again about the cards. I know you say wait until end of March because she wants. Are they going to be ready by March 28th?
No, I would go ahead and send me a personal email. Tell me how many cards you want, and I'll send them from my personal stack. That way, I am ensured that they're there by the 28th. I think there's going to be a little delay switching over, but I've got cards that I can send you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a few more. Okay. This is from Terry. It's a question uh, for both speakers. Do you have a way to collect data on how a client learned about voter registration or FRRC? Specifically, did they learn about voter registration uh, and your FRRC information from the League of Women Voters? Because that will give us important data about our impact. We want to be your boots on the ground to connect citizens with both voter registration and FRRC. But we could use that kind of data if you keep that data.
I think we have a way. I wouldn't say I think. I know we have a way to be able to track data of the impact of individuals who we engage with. Right now, we have a platform that's called Our Voice. And what that platform is we have over 150,000 returning citizens across the state of Florida who has actually been researched. And we know for a fact that they're eligible to vote, but just not registered to vote. And so based off that platform that we use, we know who we can target in any county across the state of Florida, any zip code, we can go in there and target those returning citizens. And so based off that platform, if we was to go out and do a canvas or a phone bank, we can say, hey, based off that, we was able to engage these individuals. And so, yeah, we could track that data. If we was doing something with the league and say, hey, we're going to go out and do a canvas, the league go with us, or the league do a phone bank. And based off that, those conversations that we have with those individuals, we track if they got registered to vote. We can track that as well.
Thank you.
Taylor, it was addressed to both. So Taylor,
Yeah.
can you track any data or can make data available?
Yeah. So for VoteRiders, we track data for our voter ID assistance clients. If someone comes in through the helpline, we ask them how they've heard about us. I'll add the specifically the League of Manatee onto that list for as a drop down. And then we also track if you use any of our partner referral like table topper information that also has a selection of how did you hear about us, and I'm happy to provide that information at the end of the year, kind of letting y'all know how many people come to us through your organization, and then also how many people we actually got IDs for that came through that pipeline as well.
Thank you so much. That would be wonderful.
Next questions. I still have a few more.
Mhm.
Is VoteRiders available only if the league provides trained volunteers in our county, or can we direct people directly to Taylor?
So we would direct people to our either referral or helpline, and then they just get put into our pipeline in either our staff or volunteers. So yes, direct them to us. No, we don't have to have specific volunteers from the league.
Ready for the next one? Marquis. St. Pete League has done a lot of work with returning citizens. We know not to register a returning citizen who isn't sure if they owe fees and fines. But is your suggestion to now have them contact you directly, I mean the FRRC, and get them to help them get that 90-day reply?
Yep. and I'll share the information with you guys, but you're more than welcome directly to our website. We have a hub where if they're uncertainty about their fines and fees or their eligibility, they can sign up for our fines and fees assistance program. And within 48 hours, someone from our organization will reach out to those individuals to get their application started so we can submit that advisory opinion on their process. And then also what I can share with the lead is we have a voter eligibility guide that you guys can have if you're out in the community, and it kind of answer those questions for those individuals so they can look at the guide and say, okay, yeah, I don't think I'm eligible, or yes, I may be eligible based off this information that's been provided. And again, if they're unsure, they can just reach you out directly to the organization.
Okay. Question for you, Marquis, again. Will you be available to present at the NAACP in West Palm Beach?
Yep. I would love to come down there and present with you guys.
And then next one. Where is VoteRiders based? And is there any other service that provides rides to polling places? And that's gonna general.
So I am based out of Orlando. Our organizer is based out of Tampa, and I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville because I was born and raised and my kids up there. That's where we're based out of. As far as other rides to the polls, Ride Share to Vote. I'm not sure how active they are in the state this year, but that has been an organization that offers rides. And I'll be really honest, a lot of times when rides to the polls come up, I know for our organization and other orgs, it's really close to election day. There's been an influx in funding, and that's when people can say that they can start providing rides to the polls. So I would keep an ear out for about a month and a half to before the election to see if any orgs are popping up saying that they've got additional funding for rides to the polls.
This is for Marquis. I think you provided that information. It says, what is your contact that we share for returning citizens who need to get in touch with you? I think you provided that during your presentation.
Yeah, and I don't mind saying it again. We have a hotline that they can reach, which is 407-901-3749. And I'm pretty sure you guys will share that information with them. Again, that's 407-901-3749. And then, or they can email us at info@FloridaRRC.org.
Okay, this question is for you again, Marquis. Is the returning advisory opinion process in force and usable now?
Oh, yeah. We're definitely doing advisory opinions every day. We're getting as many as returning citizens to go through that process. Just be transparent. The state is not responding as we will want them to respond, but we're putting as many advisory opinions, but they do have to respond within. But we would like to see them respond much faster.
Okay. This one is I'm with Zeta Phi Beta sorority, and the question is, how can we sign up for a letter writing or postcard party? Do either of the speakers do events in South Florida, like Fort Lauderdale area?
Yeah, if you want to host your personal, just your own letter writing party, just send me an email and we can start that ball rolling to get you the supplies and everything. Our national folks do letter writing parties. You would just visit our Mobilize site, but a lot of times that's like tomorrow we have one and they're sending letters to Pennsylvania. So it is going to be voters outside of Florida, where if we're doing one individually, it will be Florida voters that we're contacting. Happy to come down to South Florida. I'm down there pretty frequently, at least once a month. So that's kind of where VoteRiders stands.
Okay, all right. This question is, I would like to know how the list of voters supplied for letter writing parties are identified.
Absolutely. So we do use Van, and I really try to tailor it to who you're looking to write for. I'll give an example. We do this a lot of times up at the University of Central Florida. I pick zip codes that are surrounding the school. We usually choose an age demographic of under the age of 30. That way individuals feel like they're actually writing their peers.
This is from Terry again. Is it best to ask FRRC centrally for cards and materials, or should we find a local rep? Like we in Manatee County, we have Tracy Washington. She's a rep. Can we get materials from her, or do we need to get it directly from you?
No, Tracy is is a very trusted and vetted member of the organization. I love Tracy, so speaking to Tracy is almost speaking to me. I'm sure if Tracy don't have it, she'll reach directly out to us. But I do trust Tracy, and there's quite a few other individuals across the state. If you just want to run those individuals by us, that's fair. But I trust Tracy.
Okay. And the next one question is for you as well. Is it true that about 10% of adults in Florida have a conviction and are potentially disenfranchised?
I don't know if it's 10%. I think that number is a little higher than 10%. But so I would say yes, it is quite a few every 10% of certain amount of adults. I think they want to say it was 1 in 3, if I'm not mistaken. But that number I think is actually a little higher.
And let's make this next question the last one.
The last one, okay. Yeah, actually,
Yes.
it is the last one. Any ideas for target audience to invite to writing party?
People that are passionate and excited to do it. People that are looking forward towards the election, your friends, family members, people that you know that'll show up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was the last question.
Yes. And
that was a
everyone,
lot.
thank you for your questions. We will make sure that we make it easy for you to get in touch with Taylor and VoteRiders and Marquis and FRRC. We will be sending you a link to this recording in the next 1 or 2 days. I want to thank all of you for joining us today to talk about voting access and voter empowerment. We very much want to thank and say we are grateful for your time, your attention, and your commitment to civic engagement. A huge thank you to our speakers, Taylor Crowe and Marcus McKenzie. As a reminder, I did say that our program has been recorded and will be made available via an email link in the next day or two. We invite you to stay connected with the League, get involved in upcoming events and initiatives. Our website is lwvmanatee.org, and that website has a calendar of events and action team meetings. I want to remind the Manatee League members on this call that we have a tour of the Manatee County Supervisor of Elections office coming up this Thursday. Get a look behind the scenes. It's Thursday, March 5th at the Supervisor of Elections office at 10 a.m. Please check our website and register to go, get behind this behind the scenes experience. It'll be an informative session and a clear look at how our local elections are administered and the many steps taken to ensure accuracy, transparency, and voter confidence. Thank you all very much for joining us today.